Hello there, and thank you so much for joining us this day on Transforming Families. Always a pleasure to have you on board, because each time you're here, I am confident that families are being transformed. My name is Faith Kaulu, and I hope we'll stay with you through the end of this program, because I believe it's going to be informative and very educative as well as eye-opening. With me is Celestine Jagi, an advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for being here today. And we are going to discuss, I'd say, a very sensitive issue concerning our domestic workers, or what we'd call them house managers. In some families, they're known as nannies. These are very important people in our families. But one way or another, they have become very vulnerable employees. And so today we just want to discuss on how best it is to treat them, what's the right relationship, what is their right, and what is required for them, because we cannot talk about families without mentioning our nannies and how they have been very helpful and they have come through. You would agree with me that were it not for your nanny, you wouldn't be where you are. So that is why today we are bringing this discussion here, which is very key and very important. But before we get to start, Celestine, karibu sana. Maybe tell us briefly about more of what you do.
I'm an advocate of the High Court. I also run an organization called Make Her Smile. We provide sanitary towels for the women and the girls on the streets.
Yeah.
So generally the street families, and we also try to feed them at such. I also run a law firm. I'm a partner, a co-founder at Bet Njagi and Associates Advocate, with branches here in Nairobi and also in Nyahururu town. It's a pleasure to be here today.
All right, karibu sana. So let's get right into it. When we talk about nannies or house managers, we see that they are a group of employees that are very vulnerable to mistreatment, to their rights being, withheld from them. And let's start by looking at why are they vulnerable? Why is it that we don't get to ensure that they are well taken care of at their place of work?
Yes. First of all, the reason it is because of the nature of their work. The nature of their work requires them to be inside the house. So most of the time they're concealed. They're kind of confined in there, such that you find they don't have so much time to also interact with the outside, because when they're going outside, they're either going maybe to shop for something, or some houses, which let's say they're standalone houses with their own compound, the only place they might hang out or just go and relax is just at the compound area. So the fact that they are very confined in houses, people tend them to take them for granted, because you can't see them. It's not like an everyday worker who is out there who interact with different people. The only person this person is interacting with, mostly, it is the members of that family. If it is one person, for example, let's say if I'm a single mom, she's going likely to interact with myself only. If it's a household of father and mother, it's just the two of them. And if it's only one child, then that child. So you find that the interaction is quite low. So they're also not able to air their issues. The other thing is, you see, when you are a domestic worker, mostly there's no job description per se. So you see, when you're going to be a domestic manager or a domestic, especially let's say the house help, they know everything pertaining to that house. They're not told what exactly are your duties. It's the minute you've walked into this house, I expect you to take care of my child and my household in general, with absolutely no description. So the lack of the itemization of what they should be doing makes them vulnerable, because today, if let's say I also run an office in this house, I'll make you a messenger.
Sure.
And you're still my domestic worker, and you still take care of my child. So you see that also, there's no that for me, that I find that is why they're very vulnerable, and also the kind of pay that they're expecting. Some people find it like it's a favor. I'm paying you this. You're in my house. You're eating my food. You're sleeping here. So by that fact, I am actually doing you a favor, probably where you would have been if, let's say, I'm living in a high-end place. Were it not for me, you will never have experienced this life. You will never have eaten this food. You see, so by that, they're taken for granted. So they become vulnerable. They're not able to air their issues fast. They're afraid. The minute they talk, let go. If they're let go, they lose their way of livelihood, their means of earning a livelihood. So they tend to be quiet and keep to themselves, which should not be the case.
And I like that you've brought up so many issues in that, and I'd like us to look at the job description that you've mentioned, because usually most of the time a family hires a nanny, it's automatically assumed that you're here to clean, to take care of the kids, to do cooking, but really, is there need for a proper job description? This is what we expect you to do, this is the time you're supposed to wake up, like in any other formal setup of employment?
Yes. First of all, we have to recognize that a domestic worker is actually recognized as a worker just the way you're recognized as an employee of somewhere else or any other organization. The only thing that changes here is because they're in the house. So when they come to this house, they are also Kenyan citizens. They're governed also by the constitution. We should also take the cognizance of the fact that there's the Employment Act, that treaties that we've taken in, like the ILO. There's also the regulation of wages. All of them, they also are protecting this employee of yours. You should not just see them as a domestic worker. You should also remember she is an employee. The fact that she is an employee, what is expected of you, whenever you're employed, what do you get? Probably a contract. In most cases, a contract. What does the contract do? The contract mentions what is your job description, what is your working hours. Imagine if your employer told you for no extra pay, you wake up at 6 and go to bed at 10. Where else, the government says the working hours are at least 45 working hours, because factoring in Saturday of 5 hours, and if there is need for these extra hours or to do, they're compensated.
All right.
So it's 8 working hours. That is what we should be talking about. So when the domestic worker comes in, 8 working hours scheduled in what time to what time. And then if they have to work extra, what is that extra time? You compensate for that time. Now, you see, and then you tell them what is your job during these 8 hours, what is expected of this employee. If it's cleaning, so big, you are factor what if this is a very big house, what time do you clean, what time do you take care of the children? And a domestic worker, a house manager, is not a gardener. So if you have a garden, get a gardener, not your not your house manager doing the gardening. You see? Your house help is also not a watchman. You see? So I encourage domestic, especially now the house managers, make sure that you have a contract that is actually itemized. This is what you should be doing. 1, 2, 3, 4. When I wake up, this is what is expected of me: make breakfast, clean the house, maybe do the laundry or so and so. Just make sure the duties are well explained. They're clean and clear. There's no gray areas. It's black and white.
I think this also comes from a point of most people who are nannies don't even know that they require a job description, because that's when you are sent to do gardening work, yet your chances are waiting, and you sleep at 12 and you're expected to wake up at 4, which is also quite important to educate them in that when you get to that house, ask for a job description. And you've mentioned something to do with wages, and let's talk about that, because most times when you see people post on social media they're looking for a nanny, you look at the amount they're offering and you're like, wait, is this even legal? So let's talk about that.
Wages, when it comes to wages, there is the regulation of wages. For example, we have the minimum wage. The reason it is set, it is to cover those people who are actually non-skilled. And non-skilled, most of the time you find domestic workers in general, most of them are not skilled, and they also need to be protected. Else they've been taken for granted. So for example, you find that the regularization of wages, we have wages that, of course, it cannot be the same in the city and also in towns and also in other areas, maybe interior, so for example, mostly, even in Nairobi, you will find that people who actually meet the minimum wage, which in cities, major cities, which include Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa, the 3, should be at 13,572.90. But whenever someone is paying that amount, they feel as if they're doing them a favor. I'm actually paying you better than most. you're paying just the minimum wage. What you're doing is you're doing what is just expected,
Yeah.
the bare minimum. You're not doing much more than you think you're doing. It's just what is expected of you, the bare minimum. That includes the statutory deductions. Make sure the statutory deductions that you're expected to also pay are the NHIF and NSSF. Yeah. Which should also be done by the employer. The good thing is now they're not in there's no pay for them, because as you know, the government, it's up to 24,000 presently on the tax amendment tax. So at least they're not paying the pay, which is also a statutory deduction. And also the other thing now, when it comes to also paying the wages, where are you paying these wages? It's also, we also say, when you're paying, first in what tender? It has to be, if it's a Kenyan employee, if someone is working in your house in Kenya, you pay in Kenya legal tender.
Yeah.
You cannot use any other tender to pay. Secondly, if the place of where you make the payment, first it can either be cash. If it is in your house, in a place of work, maybe one thing that people actually tend not to know, you should not pay unless someone works, for example, in a bar or maybe an entertainment joint.
Yeah.
Those are the only people who should receive their payment there. Not maybe when you've gone out to maybe your house help and you're like, I remember I have your salary, you pay them there. That is actually wrong.
Okay.
You shouldn't do that. You should pay them at the place of work, or not a place that they're likely to spend or waste the money.
Yes.
That is not acceptable. Now we also go to other towns. When I talk to municipality towns, as I referred to, those are most of the ones that I recognize. For example, Ruiru, Limuru, Mavoko, those ones that are actually surrounding the city. They're expected now to pay just a little bit slightly lower at 12,522 or thereabout. And then now when we go now to other towns and other areas, we recognize maybe the needs. You see, for example, a domestic worker, it was not envisioned that all domestic workers must be living. So when they're not living, for example, now outside of the city, for example, other areas, as they're referred to, we're expected now to pay them at 7,300. But you find them, especially in those other areas, is where they're likely to be mistreated.
Yeah.
Because the people actually employing them might be people who actually know them and know their families. I think I know their family. Their family might have so many, maybe undergoing so much financial difficulties, so that if I'm paying you 2,000, I'm doing you a favor.
Yes.
You even find here in Nairobi someone saying, I cannot pay more than 7,000. You're making an offense. If your domestic worker that day decided to go and report you to the labor unions, what happens? You're told to pay them. They calculate how long have you been with your employer? This long.
Okay.
So you're taken to court. Some actually opt to settle. Or the other thing is, if you're taken to court, for all that time you've not been paying according to the minimum wage, it's calculated.
Yeah.
You pay them as compensation for that. If there are extra hours that you're not paying more than the 8 hours per day, if they're working more than that, what is expected? But the other thing now, domestic workers, especially house help, they don't also keep a record. For example, you find most of them, because of maybe children going to school, they are up by 5 or 6, depending on maybe the ages of the children. So if they're up by 5 or 6, they don't even record that. They think it's okay, it's fine to be up by that time. But now what time do you go to sleep, or what time does it get to when your duty stop?
Yeah.
They don't factor in that. So we go back to the job description. So if you don't remind your employer, but my contract says I'm supposed to work for 8 hours per day. Why am I working for this time and it's not compensated for?
Okay.
So on top of the minimum wage, there is also the holiday pay. If, for example, you're going for Christmas, sometimes you get a bonus. Sometimes now for them, they will not. For example, when for media stations, I bet it's very different. For example, if my employees are going on holidays in December, I will not be expecting for them to work on the 25th or 26th or something till the new year. But the house help, who is very vulnerable, is expected probably to be in the house to help with the chores, because it's your time to rest. You want to rest, but you don't remember this is also a human being. He or she needs to rest. So they're not taking, and if they're not going to rest during that time, when will they rest? And if they don't rest, if they opt not to, are they compensated, which is what we call the holiday pay? Do they get it?
Okay.
The public holidays, all of us go home because,
Yeah.
it's a public holiday, especially when you're an employee of the government, even private employer. Like, no, I need to go home. It's a public holiday. It's not expected for me to be at work.
Sure.
But is that the same for the domestic workers? In most cases, no. But do we recognize that when they're coming to the house? Do you remember there's a public holiday? What is expected? For example, I would tell an employer, when you're an employer, what do? If it's a public holiday, either get someone else to work on that day and compensate them, or if your employee is agreeable, let her work on that day, but also compensate for the day.
them. Yeah.
You see, but most people do not remember to do that. They assume it is the right to rest. It is the duty of the house help to work throughout.
Yeah.
They recognize only the one day on Sunday, probably. Tell them it's your day to go to church. And before they leave to go to church, they work.
Yeah, sure.
So is that even fair? If for myself, if someone was to tell me that, even my employees will not accept to come on Sundays. First, I tell them, no, before you go to church, you need to come to the office and do this and this, and then you can go to church. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You see? But we expect that those who are at home, that are domestic workers, they will wake up, they will clean the house, they will make breakfast for you, and then they will go to church.
And rush back early.
And be back in time to make dinner.
Yeah.
That is very unfair. And that is why most of them, the reason they actually suffer through this, lack of knowledge, number one.
Yeah.
Secondly, you actually find that these domestic workers are not unionized. They don't even know about the union. They don't know about Kutheha.
Yeah.
They don't know that they actually have. You see, for example, if your domestic worker is unionized, they know their rights. Probably. They might know their rights.
Yeah.
But if something goes wrong, they will go to the union and tell them, this and this happened. So the trade union will pick up that case very quickly and maybe sue or write a demand letter directly to the employer. Maybe the employer might right the wrongs. And then probably in most cases, of course, once an employer has been sued, they're likely to dismiss this employee. Yes?
Yeah.
But at least they will have gotten the compensation.
Yeah.
You see? The other thing is, but if you're not unionized, as a domestic worker, what happens to you when you go to the union? They tell you first they have cases they're dealing first with their members because you're not part of the union.
Right.
So they send you to the Ministry of Labor for you to get maybe representation from there, which can be a bit hectic. So first of all, they need also to be unionized. As an employer, you need to recognize their rights. That way you will not get in conflict with the law.
Yeah.
And also with your employee. And she will be very happy because sometimes, most of the time, when you listen to domestic workers, why do they leave? It is the nature of the work. Maybe they're rude, they're not taking, maybe their rights are also not being factored in, which is mostly in cases, of course, they're not factored in.
Now, you've mentioned a lot of things. I myself am being enlightened and I really like it.
Yes.
Because I know if someone is watching us, I hope that, this rings a bell to them to start treating the nannies better. But one thing I'd also like us to talk about is the wage, the salaries. We've talked about the minimum salary, especially in major cities and in other places. But let's say I, as an employer, am not earning that much and I can't afford this 13,000. So I get to pay them lesser. Is that okay? Since you've mentioned that in case of anything, they can go to court and I'd be required to pay for the amount, for the period of time they've been working. But now if I can't afford to pay them the minimum wage, so how do I go about that?
One thing is, in most households, we cannot afford or do away without the house help.
Yeah.
We also recognize that the fact that the economy in which Kenya is in right now, we are not able, actually not very many households in Kenya actually manage to pay 13,572 as per the minimum wage, especially even in Nairobi. But you have small children and you need someone to take care of them when you're leaving.
Yeah.
Then the legal redress for you will be you do without one. You get most daycares, I think, are cheaper than having a live-in domestic worker in your house. Yes, what do? You get someone, you will get a daycare, you will be leaving your child there. And then in the evening when you come, you pick your child and do the work yourself at home.
Okay.
That will only be the way for you to go if you cannot afford. During the pandemic, you see even most employers would pay up to half. Yeah. And feel justified. Yeah? But it is not because it is right, but it is what the situation that was demanding. Yeah. So sometimes, even if you're not able to pay this amount, I would not advise anyone actually, because it's a decent amount, maybe 8,000 is decent or 9,000 is decent. Now you pay them 9,000. Legally, it is not right, but it is what can be afforded probably by that family.
Yeah.
And the other thing, these employees, when they come, some actually feel like, she pays me 9,000, she's paying better than most employees, you know? And they feel they're in a better position. But still, if your employee decides to take you to court, you will have to pay.
Okay.
And the other thing is you're supposed to have a contract, and a contract cannot be based on an illegality.
Yeah.
First, what does the court recognize? How much are you paying this your nanny? 7,000. How much are you supposed to be paying? So that contract is null and void from that point.
Yeah.
You cannot tell the court, but sir, I was earning 20,000, so there's no way I could have paid them half my salary. Then you had no business getting to work for you.
Yeah.
You see? Another thing is employers are also tricked by this. Maybe someone is unionized, and they want to get some money from you. So they will come, work for 3 months for you. Probably you're paying them the 7,000 or 8 or 9, short of the minimum wage. Then they take you to the union. Then you're demanded to pay them. Or yes, they can come and auction some of your goods probably when they get their court judgment. What will you do? So to avoid all that, I would tell someone, please, maybe other people need, it's also a business need to create very good daycares, because I think for mothers, you're happier when your child is at home in the environment that he or she understands, or maybe they're well taken care of, especially if it's one person taking care of them, rather than maybe in the company of very many children. Maybe their needs are not being met. Yeah, but that is the law, and we say the law is on us.
Yeah.
That is it. You cannot change it. It's not been amended. Unless the employers now actually hold hands and say, you know what, we need this checked, so they can maybe talk to the parliamentarians, change this law. It's not working for us. For these reasons, you're telling us to be in Nairobi and paying this much, where else I cannot even earn that much, or I earn just slightly more. But I have to have my child taken care of. And you're not providing any other option. Even at workplaces, they're expected to have creches for mothers and maybe take their... But that's not happening.
Yes.
It will be up to the employers to hold hands and do that. But because now the domestic workers have already decided what, and the law has set out, this is what you should pay them, there's nothing we can do for them.
Wow. So a lot of people could actually end up in court with bills to pay.
Yes.
Because I'd say a lot of nannies are getting very little money, and as you've mentioned, this is brought by the factor that a lot of employers feel like, I'm doing you a favor, I brought you to Nairobi from your Geshagi, you're living a better life, I'm feeding you better food, and that is wrong. Very briefly, before we take a break, let's mention living in house managers or nannies. The fact that an employee is feeling, I'm doing you a favor, I'm feeding you, is that supposed to be deducted from the salary? I'm giving you a place to sleep, you're watching my TV, you are using my internet. Yes, can that be used?
Actually get that a lot. You see, some employers actually say if you're supposed to work for 8 hours, yes? Logic dictates if you're working, when you're at work, for example, when you're using the internet to your boss, are you charged to use the Wi-Fi? Are you?
No.
Why would you charge your house manager the same?
Okay.
You see, if for example, now maybe some people now go for, if that is the case, then the 8 hours, they come in for the 8 hours and go home. They have to live in.
All right.
And they're still entitled to the 13,000.
Yeah. Nothing changes.
Nothing is changing if they come work if they get to your house maybe at 6 and leave maybe by 4. There's nothing that is changing. You pay them the 13,500 and they go. So they're actually doing you a favor by sleeping in, because you know when someone is actually sleeping in, what you forget, this person who is sleeping in, if something arises in the night, who is likely, they're likely to assist. They're likely to assist you.
Yeah, sure.
They're actually doing you a favor. And it's actually now because they will maybe clean dishes at night.
Yeah.
Are you paying them for that extra time? So if you want to deduct, then make sure you're paying for every extra minute she works. The holiday pays are there. If I past my 8 hours, I start counting the hourly pay, because if it's at 13,000, then you count per day how much should they be earning, probably 700 bob. So how much should be per hour? Then you do the math. Then if she works for every extra hour that she's working, add on it. If she wakes up too early, add that. So you will end up, who will be running at a deficit? Just the employer, not the employee.
Yes. Wow, this is new information for most. Could be shocking. So take time, let it sink in, get to understand what we are talking about, but do not move a muscle, because when we come back, we'll also look at, what are some of the factors you should consider when you're trying to hire a nanny, because, this is your employee. So keep it right here. We'll be right back.
Wakenya ni wapenda kazi na kila siku wapo mbioni kuchapa kazi. Kipindi cha Kazi na Mali ni rafiki, swahiba na kipenzi cha wachapakazi wote. Si jua kali tu. Kilimo shambani.
Kusema kweli, nguruwe ni wazuri.
Madini ya protein kwa huyu snail iko juu sana.
Biashara sokoni. Wajasiriamali wa aina zote, sanaa, wasanii. Guess what? It is busy. Tunatembea nawe kila hatua ya uvumbuzi na ubunifu wako ili kujikimu na kukimu uchumi wa taifa. Kazi na Mali, sisi ndisi, CAK TV, hapa ndipo.
Kwenye makala ya kwanza ya jukwaa la moderator.
Tunapojiweka mbele katika mambo yote tunayofanya, huwa tumeenda kinyume na matakwa ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Hasira moja iliyokuwa na Mungu ni kuhusu watu wanaojipenda. Kazi ya Mungu inapaswa kupewa kipaumbele. Kuna uwezekano ya kwamba tukisikiza ushauri wa Mungu kwa njia inayofaa, tutakuwa sawa kwake, sababu Mungu ana rehema.
Kuanzia Jumapili hii saa 1:30 jioni na kila Jumapili ya kwanza ya kila mwezi, ungana naye moderator wa kanisa la PCA Mchungaji Thegu Mutahi kwa mahubiri, mafunzo na ufafanuzi wa kiroho kuhusu masuala ibuka nchini. Hapa CAK TV.
Tafakari njia zako.
Without health, life is not life. As human beings, we need complete mental, physical, and social well-being, not just the absence of disease. Regardless of what disease, condition, health system status, or information gap, we are here not just to convey or state, but to explain and break it down in the most basic way, for your health is key and it matters. Every Monday from 7:30 p.m., I will help you find out how to look after your health, live healthier for longer, and be in total control of your health.
Welcome back to Transforming Families, and thank you so much for keeping it right here. Today we are talking about the welfare of our nannies, or house managers as they are mostly referred to nowadays. And thank you so much, Celeste. I mean, you are enlightening us, you're educating us, and I really like that we are using this platform to let families know that you should do better, they should do better for their nannies and employees, including remitting NHIF and NSSF. Yeah, I'd like to insist on that point. But let's look at, we've mentioned that this relationship should be formal, employee-employer relationship, whether you hired someone you don't know or you've hired a relative, you are not doing them a favor. But let's look at what should then an employer look out for in a nanny, because you are employing someone who you should pay a certain amount, who you should treat in a certain way. So what are some of the best qualities that one should look out for before deciding to hire?
Number one, I tell people, whenever you're bringing someone in your house, do proper interviews. Do your due diligence. For even you, when you're getting to be hired, there are interviews.
Yeah.
You're expected to give copies of your ID. You're expected to maybe have the good conduct certificate. Why don't you expect the same of the person you're bringing into your house? It should be just not because they're looking or that they want a job, you take them in quickly and eagerly, because most of the time employers are quite desperate. You see, when you're a mother and probably you're a working mom, you don't have that much time to maybe vet the person who's coming in. But don't forget, this person is coming in to take care of your most valuable goods, or the most valuable person in your life should be maybe your child when you're not around, So first thing, conduct interviews. Or if you cannot conduct interviews without being biased, probably have someone else conduct the interviews for you. Someone who you know has proper judgment. Expect the person who is coming to have a good conduct. Go out of place. You see, for example, recently you keep hearing children have been kidnapped and you don't even have a picture of that person. You don't have an ID of that person. Well, how exactly did you employ that person to come and live with you in your house and take care of your children without that? Once you have the ID, it is necessary. It can be expensive, but it is necessary to have a search at the Bureau of Persons to ensure this is the person they represent themselves to be. Could be a fake ID. How do you know? Yet you've let that person in. They might steal from you. They might harm your children. They might harm you. How will you get to them? Have passport photos that you yourself have taken, so that they're not bringing in a passport photo when they were maybe 25 and they're 30-something now. No. A few features could have changed, but the current one that you've taken, and you see, once they're coming in and they know this is an employer-employee relationship, it has to be very professional from the get-go. That is when you set the mood. Set your mood. Yes, you're living in my house. We're going to coexist because we're living together. But you're still my employee. I am an employer. It is a relationship of respect and trust. I trust that you're going to take care of my children very well when I'm away, because I cannot see you. Even if I have cameras and monitors monitoring you every now and then, I cannot always be there just to see what exactly you're doing every minute. But when they see, if I am a thief, or if I have planned to come to kill or whatever, do something to you, the kind of due diligence that is being done on the first instance will either make me shy away from the job. Because when I'm advertising, this is what I want. I tell you, before you come to my house, please come with your ID and a copy of it. Come with the passport photos, and I will also take passport photos. Come with a certificate of good conduct. If not, come with a receipt of the same. If I'm a person who is coming to maybe do fishy business in your house, I will think twice. I will think this is a bit too strict for me. Maybe this is not the place I wanted to be. And also, most of the time you might be biased because maybe of how they look. The other thing is also employers are advised. There is discrimination. And the burden of proof to prove that you did not discriminate against them is maybe because, it's very difficult to find a house help with a man in most households. It's almost impossible, But if a young man came looking for that job, and you tell them, I'm letting you go because you're a man, are you discriminating on me because I'm male?
Okay.
So, no, just be wise with your words. Like, oh, maybe you're not the candidate I'm looking for at the moment. But if I get an opportunity, I will, be wise in how you use the words. Just be wise. Yeah? And also, this person who's coming to your house, when they know they're signing a contract, because of the age, also know how old are you. You might not be of legal age, and maybe you're trying to lie to me with a fake ID or so. How old are you? What skills do you have? Have you been at this before?
Yeah.
Why did you leave the place that you left? Of course, we do not, in most cases, especially of domestic workers, there's no point, unless some people ask for, give me a recommendation letter of where you are. And most of the time, because that relationship had maybe, we call it, has irretrievably broken down, they cannot get that. Yeah? But also judge them. Tell them you have a probation period of, for example, maybe 3 months or 3 weeks, whichever the time that you choose best for you. But within a month, you should be able to see the character of this person, yeah? You have a probation period. I'm going to give you this. This is the amount I'm paying you. This is the probation period that I have to know whether we'll continue this relationship further. Also, let the interview, most of the times, let it not be in your house.
Okay.
You can choose a neutral area. You can choose, maybe, if you don't have an office, a good restaurant, not noisy. Come meet me here. Of course, we'll take care of the bill, but I want to know, what kind of person are you?
Yeah.
Then when I take you to the house, when I show you what kind of duties, ask them, what do you expect from me? What are your expectations? Because they also have expectations.
Yeah.
And then most of the time, ask, how long do you want this job? It is very difficult to get a nanny who says, this is my dream job. I have always wanted to be a house manager.
Yeah.
But there are some, they're actually there. Like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I love taking care of other people's homes and children. And expect also the earning. Now, whatever you're paying them, maybe you'll have a very long-term relationship, probably. But there are some, like, this is short-term. I expect to be here for maybe 6 months, and then I save enough for me to go to school. Because it's usually, most of the nannies and house help, it's mostly a transition job to something better. Because we do not, generally in Kenya, we do not value house helps most of the time. So even them, they don't value their work. So if you find someone who does not value their work, how do you expect they will value what is in that house? They will value those children there.
Yeah.
It has to be someone who values what they do. If they don't value that, then you have no business having that person in your house. It can be a transition. Yes, I expect I'm saving up for this, this, and this, because this is what I want to do and pursue. They're very clear on the get-go. And you will know when someone is genuine. Yeah? You will know. Just conduct interviews, not just one person who's referred to you. And also, most times, I tell people, get a referral.
Okay.
And if it is a bureau, is that bureau registered? If this person is this person that they're sending to you, have they done any due diligence on this human being? If something was to go wrong, would you go to them? Or it's just one, today I'm just posing as a bureau. I tell you I have a bureau, I charge you this fees, I bring that person, and we are planning, and we are in cahoots to steal from you. The minute you call me, I tell you, who's that? I don't remember. I've never sent you anyone. There's no documentation to show that you got that person from that bureau. So if it's a bureau, have documentation that you're getting that person from there. So that way, even the people who are coming to your house, they know, or even you might, like, if you're going to work for her, just even maybe relatives will know, if you're working for this person, just be very professional.
Yes.
And also keep that relationship a bit professional. Maybe say familiarity breeds contempt.
Yeah.
It's very normal for that to happen. But if you still keep that professional, of course not, you cannot talk to her, you cannot sit down and, of course you're human beings, relate, talk to each other. But also keep it professional. You can talk to your boss, but you just can't go all the time until there's no that. I cannot tell, is she your employee? Are you sisters? Are you just friends? Is she just visiting? Have that relationship intact. Okay. So that way, she knows when it comes to work, I'm expected to do this. And you also know when it comes to my employee, they expect me to have done this. And mostly when I tell any employer, Your employee mostly does not work for you. You work for your employee. In terms of, if you don't go to work, will you pay that person?
No.
If you don't, and you see, if I come to your house, for example, let's say I'm a nanny, I'm going to be employed. I see this house. The way I first find that house kept, I will generally make a certain decision. Like, this place probably it's not that clean.
Yeah.
Nothing. There's not much to do here. They like the things just thrown out. You know what? They don't take good, keen interest in whatever they have. The first impression, what is it that you give as an employer? Be careful, because most of the time I tell the employers, you're working for your employees. Without you doing the most, your employee will do absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You must do the most. For example, if it's that on Sunday that you expected, maybe you might be the one who's going to clean, or you're going to call someone else. Make sure it's thorough, so that when they come, they know, even when I'm not here, this house will still be intact.
Yeah.
So I value my job because my employer values their place. They value their children, they value their house.
Yeah.
How they treat their children is exactly how they will treat. If you yell at your children, how will you expect your nanny to do any different?
Sure. Yeah.
No, you must do better. You must be the better person in that house. Always.
What I'm learning is, when you set the pace, it's not only for the good of your nanny, but also for yourself, because then you discourage jokers, I'd say, people who have ill motives, and you also set the mood in your house. And when we're talking about having a formal relationship, employee-employer, definitely we also have nannies who misbehave. Either they don't perform their duties well, or they just go absent without telling you where they've gone. So how would it be best to approach such a situation, especially if you want to let them go?
If you want to whenever you employ someone, have that termination clause. If you've had them for 3 months, it's mandatory for you to have a contract. If you do not have a contract, then you're doing something against the law.
Yeah.
Especially past the 3-month mark. Yeah? So if you want to let them go, your contract probably has already addressed how to terminate this contract on behalf. If it is them, whatever they've done, if there is a notice, maybe a notice of 24 hours or 7 days regarding to the contract, because what people forget is courts will always enforce the contract if the contract is a legal contract.
All right.
Not an illegal contract. When it is legal, when you take me to court, the court will check what are the terms of this contract. When are they supposed to let you go? How are they supposed to let you go? If you've misbehaved, for example, you've stolen from me, have I reported, or did they just let you go? I just cannot make a claim that you stole from me. How? How will I prove that you actually stole from me for me to let you go? Have that have that courage. Go and report. So if I just let you go at an instant, I reported them because they stole from me. This is an OB number that shows they actually had stolen from me. But I chose to forgive them anyway, and they let them go.
Yeah.
And they actually know, okay, then I have no redress, because I had actually done the deed or so, or maybe never followed up on the case,
Yeah.
But mostly also now on the part of the nannies, when they want to go,
Yeah, sure.
if they want to, they let the contract also address, maybe give you a 7 days notice for you to have found someone else. And if that is the case, it will also be expecting a 7 days notice for you to let them go, or a month, or whatever time, for you to maybe have put your things in order, because I can just not. But mostly you find that nannies just, today I am tired, my mother or someone in the village just died, I need to go.
Yeah.
And they go and don't come back. Then you don't pay them.
Yeah.
Because there is in lieu of notice, we usually say, if you don't give me a notice, how will I be paying you? But if you give me a sufficient notice, I'm expected maybe to pay you for that time, or accordance with that contract. So always have a contract. It is very important. So that way, the terms and conditions will apply.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I am happy that we're having this, and I can't insist enough on this fact. And, as much as we're having this conversation, there are people who've already breached that relationship, maybe you have gotten too familiarized with them, you're laughing, and a visitor can't even tell, is this a relative or is this a nanny? How best can now they work on that relationship, and would it set them up for legal issues in the future? But even as we talk about that, I want us also to mention that it is not wrong. Yeah, you can familiarize, because we've had cases where an employer would say, you know what, you mentioned that you'd like to continue with school. I'll pay for that.
Yes.
Yeah, but that is out of their own will. They're not entitled to deduct their salary or anything. But now, if now someone is watching and they're thinking, okay, I want to make this relationship formal, so then how do they approach the whole issue?
First of all, because most of us, I believe, most people have fallen in that aspect.
Yeah.
But it's good to actually just to get to know your employee away from maybe just work. Usually, because you find that when this person is managing your house, you also maybe sometimes you can be working from home, like what is happening during this corona period.
Yeah.
You can be working from home. If I'm working from home, there's absolutely no way I will not talk to my domestic manager.
Sure.
Of course, we'll strike conversations. I'll get to know them past work.
Yeah.
Just I will get to know maybe about their lives, maybe previously their employers and whatnot. You will get to know and speak to them. Yeah. But now, if let's say they're already 1 year in, you've never had a contract, but you're still very good friends, you can just have the contract drawn up.
Okay.
You will not you will just write when did they begin work in your place, this time, or when are you formalizing this relationship of employee-employee.
Yeah.
We are formalizing it from to date. So going forward, what are we doing? You see, going forward, these are still this is what is expected of you, this is what is expected of me. You're still going to be friends because we live together.
Yeah.
But let it be clear, most of the time, have the contract drawn up, either by an advocate, mostly by an advocate, because once maybe you have it, maybe you can use it the next time someone else is coming in, but always because the terms changes, the regulation of wages changes.
Yeah.
Today we are saying 10 years ago, actually, you would find that the wages were at 5,000. And that was not a problem, because also the economy would allow people to be paid 5,000 and they will still do very well. Yeah. Now it's not the same. We are speaking of 13,000. Why? Because times, the economy have changed, and they're changing for everyone. So we need to also recognize that now going forward, correct it fast. Draw up a contract if you did not have one. During that, when you have a contract, it generally governs that relationship in totality, because you're going to talk about the description, you're going to talk about the holiday, the wages, you're going to talk about the way of redress, you're going to talk about everything. So the contract is something I always say, have a contract drawn up.
Okay.
Ensure that your contract is not based on an illegality. Do not go based on your town or where you live in. Do not go past the minimum wage. It has to be, if you can afford just the minimum wage, make sure you pay that. Don't forget there is a 12% increment, but that's annually. Most people also leave out that fact. Someone has worked for you for 10 years, because I've seen nannies who worked even for 10, 12 years, but the salary is still the same. But if you ask them, why even them at work, do they still get the same salary they got when they got into that office? Absolutely not. But they don't want to change for someone who's taking care of them and their children at home. See, so don't forget about the 12% increment. Also, maybe something we didn't touch about was on the leave days.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's calculated generally at 1.75 days monthly, but the best way is annual leave is 21 days. But who is entitled? Not every nanny or domestic worker is entitled to 21 days.
Okay.
Because if I've not worked for you, we call them annual leave days for a reason.
Yeah.
Because you've worked for me at least for 1 year. And they have to be fully paid.
The leave days.
Yes, the leave days must be fully paid.
Okay.
So if you've not worked for me for 1 year, how can I give you 21? Also, the domestic worker needs to manage their expectations.
Yeah.
But the one free day on Sunday is mandatory.
As
Even
their
the
off
Bible
day.
says, on the seventh day God rested.
Yeah.
Why do you not expect this person to rest on that day? So we expect that after every 7 days, there's 1 day of rest. Usually it's the Sunday, but depending on the relationship or what they agree on.
Yeah.
That is something.
And so now that we're talking about leave days and off days, could we also mention sick days? Because for most employers, when the nanny is sick, they let them go, because you can't work anymore. Is that right?
No, absolutely not. When you are sick, when your nanny is sick, they are entitled to 7 fully paid sick days. 7. If it prolongs, for example, maybe in the next month you can get them maybe half pay. And then after that, now you see you cannot keep them any longer because they're not able to work.
Yeah.
So what do? You get someone else in and terminate that relationship.
All right. Okay.
Same case applies also to people in the formal sector who are formally employed.
Yeah.
There's some sick days. You're told, for example, in your contract, you will see it addresses. If you're sick for maybe 1 month or 2, this is how much we'll be paying you. Then after that, maybe half day. And then after that, probably they might let you go.
Yeah.
Because how else are you assisting that institution?
Right.
That does not do away with their benefits. If there are any other benefits that had been accrued, make sure they are paid in full before they can go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. So several things that we have mentioned that I believe are quite important is that it is very, very, very necessary for a nanny or a house manager to join a trade union. That will help you be aware of your rights. That will also help you have a fallback plan in case, you are unlawfully terminated, mistreated. You'd have somewhere to go and get help. Also, as an employer, have a contract. This is not your relative, this is not your friend, you are not doing them a favor. This is your employee, you have hired them. So go to a lawyer, get a contract, have interviews. I really liked that because we barely do that in our families. You will get someone, you call an aunt at home, back at home, and say, nitafutie msichana wa kazi, and they get you someone, and you take them, because you're in a rush, in a hurry, and you are not aware that this is someone who you're bringing into your space, into your house. Yeah, so thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have learned much. Before we end the program, definitely I'd like you to just generally mention something, a word you'd like to leave with our viewers with. Could be a nanny who's watching, could be an employer who's watching as well. Yeah.
If you're a nanny, get unionized. Very important. You can just go to the Kutuiha offices. They do recruitment for domestic workers all the time. So go get unionized. If you're an employer, do your due diligence. I cannot insist. Do your due diligence. It is very important. If you do not do that, you've set yourself up for failure. Immediately, you let that person in your house. Set the pace, set the mood, have everything drawn up in a contract extremely well. You say cheap is expensive.
Yeah.
You may not go to a lawyer and decide to draft your own contract that might be illegal. So what happens in that case? They will find you in court. Yes.
And you will pay for it.
Have to. You will not like it.
Yeah.
You will definitely not enjoy it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Celestine, for being here today. The time has been short. This is a discussion that requires more because there's a lot we have no understanding about, or rather we have ignored. Yeah, but I'm really grateful that you were able to come. I know definitely, dear viewer, you have a lot of questions. Send them in on our Facebook page, CAC TV Kenya. We will do a follow-up episode of this and get to discuss more so that we are aware and we are well informed. Thank you so much for tuning in as well. Be transformed by today's content. My name is Faith Kaulu. Till next time, God bless you.